We're connecting to YouTube right now. Okay, and we're live. So, perhaps
I'd
Gil
say-
will take the lead.
Yeah, so Gil, I think you're you're on mute.
Yep, that was on mute, sorry.
There you go.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 11th Planning Board, Village of Port Jefferson. Our chairman will be here shortly, so in the interim, you're stuck with me, but welcome. And I guess to begin, I would ask if anybody had any questions on the February 11th draft minutes. And if not, I did. I just have to find them, of course. And it was regarding, yeah, this was it. Okay, sorry about that. I showed up late, but the only question I had was on One North Country Road. One of the items we spoke about was, and Pat Lenahan, I think we were talking with at the time, the access solely through Thorn Lane. In the last sentence of that, it's the third to last paragraph. It starts off, PL stated that the traffic study was done before COVID, ... In the last sentence, we said it may be possible to retain access to North Country Road and restrict left turns. Would it be more appropriate to say right turns in and right turns out? That's what the impression I got. We're restricting left turns out and restricting left turns in.
So Ray had sent me comments on that paragraph today also.
Oh, okay.
And I incorporated his comments with Jen. So if you want to amend them again, Jen, you and Gil decide, since you were in on Gray's comments.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because it is a two-way. It's in and out.
And Patrick Lenahan is leaving a message right now.
We intended to allow, whoop.
Sorry.
Well, it said that he intended to allow left turns in.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, they're minutes. I don't know that. I mean, a lot of this will come out in public hearing.
Right.
So
I'm fine with, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. If everybody else is agreeing with Pat, that's fine. I don't, I'm not making an issue of it. Just in my brain, I thought right turns in, right turns out.
Because if you're heading east,
Right.
you need to make a left turn into the property. So.
Right. I mean, you could restrict it, have everybody turn onto Thorn, and then you got to make a second left to get onto the property.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But
maybe we'll bring this, instead of trying to have this discussion as part of the minutes discussion, maybe we leave the minutes kind of vague and we bring this up for tonight's meeting to discuss with the applicant and then put that into the minutes for tonight's meeting. Since there seems to be some clarification coming in from the applicant, but we're not actually at that part of the meeting. Hi, Ray Tobias.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, Ray.
Hi. We're not online yet?
We are.
We're on everything.
Okay.
We're hot.
Okay. And where am I joining?
We're in the
Me
minutes
too.
of last meeting, and then I brought up an issue that we're regarding One North Country Road that we're going to wait till we continue the discussion this evening.
Okay. All right. So did we do minutes?
I asked if anybody had any comments, and other than me, that was it. So as far as unless somebody else has one. All right.
Okay. So we can get a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second Laura.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. I see your name. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, minutes are approved. Trustee report? Rebecca?
Good evening, everyone. The board is very excited to have, the village is excited to have put out the first Port E-report, which gets to detail a lot of the work that this board puts together and the planning department puts together. So I don't know if by raise of hands, who's seen the Port E-report here? Yay, so almost a majority. So that's something that folks can look out for. Obviously, if you're tuned into this meeting or at this meeting, you already know all the details in greater detail than the Port E-report provides. But if you have folks in your life in the village, outside the village, who are always asking, hey, what do you talk about there? The Port E-report is a newsletter that's going to be, I think, each month put out, which says, hey, this is, here's some information about the Station Street project. Here's what's coming up next, with the new ferry building. So it's a great way also to highlight the hard work that boards like this are putting into the village. So thank you for that. And that's kind of all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Is that a regularly scheduled report, or it just comes out periodically?
Believe it's surely regularly scheduled. I believe it's monthly. But I believe Trustee Snaden was working closely with the folks at the village on that. So I'm going to check in with her next time I see her and ask her that question.
Okay. All right. I see on the agenda, we have a note that the next planning board meeting is on April 8th, Thursday. And I guess do we want to stick with the 6 o'clock on that? Probably, right? I think we kind of said we're going to standardize the time from now on, so there's no confusion. Is that
good for me?
Okay with everyone? Okay, so the next planning board meeting will start at 6 o'clock. I don't know if we're going to definitely have any hearings, but if we do, the first hearing would start at 6:30, and then we'd go back to the work session after the public hearings until the session ends. First item on tonight's agenda is special use permit renewal from the Board of Trustees for the Fox and Owl Inn. I guess, Rebecca, you're going to have to not comment on this one, as you are involved in it. It's a
I'm just going to turn my
renewal
video off while you folks.
Okay. Yeah. It's a 3-year renewal of the special use permit for bed and breakfast. So do we have a staff report on this?
I didn't send out a staff report on this one. These are I realized I probably should have just sent a quick note. I did review the property file, and there are no open violations and there's no open building permits. So all the work that was done, which actually was done, I think, in the prior 3 years, was permitted and closed. They have their CEU and all their COs for the work done there, and no violations on file for anything. I'm happy to pull the application up to flip through the pages if you'd like to see it. It's been a bed and breakfast since 2014 in the village. And if the planning board has no recommendations, it goes next to the building inspector, who will do a walkthrough to check for building compliance and fire safety issues. So would you like me to pull up the full application just to show the property?
I would think, unless we've had complaints, you have complaints in the file, or one of the board members or anyone on the meeting tonight has heard of any complaints or has any concerns, personal concerns, unless I don't know that we need to look at the application or the permit. If there are no known complaints that anybody has, or we have no record of them, I don't know why we wouldn't renew the permit.
I agree with you.
Okay. So we have no comments, I guess, is what we can say to the Board of Trustees on this.
Yeah, I think that's fair, that there's nothing that would indicate this shouldn't be renewed to the,
Right.
and pending the building inspector's determination that it's fire safe and all the rest. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, Rebecca, you can come back on now. You probably, all right, we're gonna move along. I won't comment. Next is 170 North Country Road.
Yes, so 170 North Country Road, I didn't send a new staff report, but I did resend the updated draft resolution. This has been around for a while and there's been a lot of issues back and forth. Just a quick summary is this is a property that was in non-compliance because it had medical use where it wasn't permitted to have one. It now is permitted to have that medical use, but never had the site plan to provide the required parking for it. The new site plan has now met the required parking by land banking a number of spaces and developing part of the parking. So the total parking spots, let me just get this perfect by looking at the property file. The 3,800 square feet of medical office space requires a 1 per 100 requirement, and the remainder of the building, the 8,400 square feet of non-medical space requires a 1 per 300 parking requirement for 66 parking spaces total. Their site plan now shows those 66 spaces, but the board has agreed to allow 8 spaces to be land banked for future development should it be needed. Ray and Laura visited the site with me, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, to look over and see if this seemed like a feasible plan when we actually walked the site. And I think there was agreement that this version of the plan now works. We have to do a secret determination vote on it because it is a type, it's an unlisted action. So the parts 2 and 3 have identified no moderate to severe environmental impacts. For the other thing that happened today was we did get the bond estimates. So that maybe bears some discussion.
Right, that was today.
Yes. And while we could put off approving them, it is always nicer to just do it all at once. So
I'm sorry, I don't see why we can't do that. And I think I just had a question about the price per square feet on the pavement, I believe it was.
yes.
And Gil, I know you weighed in on it too.
Right. I was okay with the pavement. I had an issue with the, not an issue, but I thought the curb price was low. They were, I think I don't have it in front of me. I think theirs was at $16 linear feet. And if I'm not mistaken, the Ferry House was around 30, and we've gotten some recent prices that indicated it would be a little bit higher. So
if it's okay, I'll bring Eric Russo in case he has any comment on this. On the pavement, I did have, Tony actually was kind enough to reach out to
Donnie Spence.
Donnie Spence and was told that the paving price was within the market which is interesting because some of our other projects have had much higher quotes on this, but he said it was $3.50 to $4 a square foot. So let me just promote Eric Russo to panelist in case he has anything to add here.
yeah, my only thought on that was if you did have to pull the bond, generally municipal costs are higher than private costs. So if Donnie's price is based on private work, it would make more sense that it would have to come in higher. Unless the village has access to the entire bond when they go at, like if they had to replace the curb, they would have access to the entire funds. So, in the bond, it takes into account all the different construction items. If you're only looking to replace the curb and goes over, then you have access to, you're able to access
The difference.
Yeah.
It would only be in the instance where the planning board released portions of the bond for completed work that they wouldn't have access to the entirety of the bond.
Okay.
But that said, if you're not comfortable with any of the numbers, the quote that's given to you is really could just be a jumping off point. If you wanted to tweak the numbers and set the bond at that amount, that's within your purview to do so.
Yeah, and we've done that before on the spot, reviewing the bond. Gil, I have it in front of me. It's this cross section for the paving is a 5-inch stone base and 2-inch state type 1A top asphalt course
Right.
at 350. So, I mean,
The reason I agreed with your point was because it is a small area, the price is going to be higher,
Mhm.
per square foot or square yard, depending on how ton, depending on how the contractor comes in. So,
yeah, I mean, I would feel more comfortable, I think, with a price of $5 a square foot on that.
So, Mr. Capitano, when I questioned him on this, because earlier today, when Lisa presented me with the concerns, and then I briefly spoke with you, Ray, as he pointed out, he said the market changes, and what is the price today may not be the price tomorrow. He's willing to modify if that's what you need to do on any of the costs. Lisa sort of indicated everything else seemed to be in order. He would like to just move on with this. And as I discussed with Ray, if you're going to amend it, please do so and move forward with the resolution.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to do. And I think it was 5,600.
Correct. It's 5,600.
And another $1.50 would be adding that cost, 5,600 times $1.50 to the bond, which is probably about $8,500.
8,400.
Well,
pretty close.
Are you doing 5,600 times $5 or just $1? What are you?
Times $1.50 just for the additional cost.
So they can add it to the total.
Just add to the total at the bottom. So it's the additional cost of $1.50 a square foot times 5,600 square feet, and it's $8,400, as Jen said. So it's 8,400 plus the
Yes.
bottom line on the bond.
Which the bottom line was 55.2.
All right, so it's 55.2 plus
So it's 72,000.
plus 8,400.
Oh, I'm sorry. 8,400
You
plus.
want to make it 72? It's all right. with
No.
that.
There's the overage in the calculator here. Sorry. Oh, there.
So 63.6.
Yep, that looks right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anybody else on the board have any comments, or Lisa, anything?
No.
All right, that being said, can I approve the amount of the bond as modified tonight? Get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to modify.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, Laura says aye also. All right, bond is approved. We need to do a secret determination vote on this, right, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
So we went over this last time. If you want me to look and pull up those documents, I can. But basically, after reviewing the part 1, the 2, and 3, there were no moderate to severe environmental impacts identified. In fact, in this case, because the original site plan approval approved 77 parking spaces, this is actually a reduction in intensity from the approved original plan. So it appears that there is not a significant environmental impact.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know that we need to review any documents. So can I get a motion to approve the secret determination of finding of no significant impact?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Laura. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. And then we need a vote on the resolution.
So the main piece I amended into this resolution was just putting very clearly in multiple spots that 3,800 square feet of this building is office space, and no more than that can be is medical office space, and no further portion of the building can be medical space without a further site plan amendment.
Okay.
I'll
Can I
make,
get can I get a motion to approve the resolution granting conditional approval for the site plan for this project?
Barbara, go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
Gil, you're gonna second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Laura voted aye also. Okay, thank you. Eric, I guess we'll see you in a bit on another project.
Yes, I will move you to the waiting room and have you
Isn't it the
rejoin.
next one on the agenda?
No.
There's one more in between.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, see you later.
Okay.
All right, now moving on to 116 West Broadway. Site plan. And that is also yours, Lisa.
Yes. So that also we should be very familiar with at this point. That is the ferry building. We also have the same questions on, we have the secret determination, the I think that you wanted time to review the drainage, which that was submitted before the last meeting. And also we got the bond amounts for that project as well. I don't know where you would like to start with that one. If you would, if there's any documents you want me to pull up right now.
Maybe the site plan with the drainage.
Yes.
I didn't look at the drainage in detail. Gil, did you take a look at that? Do you know? No, maybe we should look at it now. That was the shallow leaching structures. Like, what do you call those? There's a terminology for that. Get leaching galleys, I guess is what it is.
Yeah. It's similar to what was used in the Barnum lot, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Right, and this is used whenever there's a high water table.
Yeah, so can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. I can zoom in. I know it's very small print. If there's parts of it you would like a closer view of, I'm happy to zoom in. Just let me know.
Probably the plan in the lower left.
Okay.
So there's 10 leaching galleys there, it looks like, that are interconnected, with a couple of catch basins in the parking area, parking aisle. There's 4 of them, with a 6-inch drain that drains to, where does that go? I see a drainage line in the lower right corner, but I don't know. Does that connect to something there? It's a little hard to see.
Yeah, I think there's a trench drain across the front of the back of the apron or sidewalk.
Yep.
Ah, okay.
So that's where it connects in, and then they've got.
Oh, okay, and then that goes the other way down to the
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are the leaching galleys? I assume they're surrounded with stone, and there's some kind of stone bedding.
Looks
Good
that
shit.
way.
Let me
12 inches.
pull over here so you can see can you see the sediment barriers and and then this?
Wait, that's a precast.
Barriers, bale barriers. That's erosion control.
That's the erosion control, but here it's showing underneath the basins, I believe. And
Yeah, that's the bait.
Catch basin.
Catch basin.
That's the catch basin.
We want to section through one of these leaching galleys.
That's this, I think that's the big box up on the top right. This heavy duty storm leaching galley. Won't be high.
Right.
I think that's all the leaching.
Yeah, I don't see anything about the filler around it though.
Mhm.
Right.
At least it's not obvious.
But is there anything in the stormwater calculations below?
Could be.
No.
How about to the left of the catch basin detail and above in the description of things? Does it?
Oh,
And the
this-
specification, does it call out?
Oh, general notes.
I think there's a note on the right side of the plan I just saw when you moved up. That
Okay.
right under the north arrow, there was a note.
All right, let me come down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
find the north arrow.
I'm having a little trouble here seeing it on my screen. It's over this way, right?
Yeah, you gotta move over to the left
Left.
and go up.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Stormwater
Leaching galleys on 12-inch.
gravel
bed.
bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is similar to the catch basin detail that Tom pointed out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, my preference would be to have the galleys surrounded by a stone bed to, to better drain into the, but I don't know how much it's going to drain anyway. I mean, it's pretty shallow there, the water table.
Yeah, there's a note on the plan that says 12-inch gravel bed underneath them. Doesn't
Yeah.
talk about what's around them.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonder if they put the bed, maybe when they've put in the leaching galleys, maybe they just dump.
That's what I would
in it
assume.
as well. Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, I think we need, unless there's a note on it, we need to clarify that because
But
that's,
it talks about a detail on another page, it looks like, right?
yes.
Where was that note?
Wait,
The detail on this sheet, LG 1-20.
Yeah.
all right. Let me zoom out again.
Find the detail. 1-20.
What sheet are we? Yeah. So maybe that's part of a bigger set that we don't have.
oh,
Unfortunately, it does not look like
Yeah.
the applicant is in the attendee room right now. He may be joining later. I know he had a meeting conflict. If we want to wait and come back to this to
Lisa,
clarify.
perhaps zip him a quick email saying that the planning board's looking for clarification on this issue. That way
Okay.
he knows that they're looking for him if he's in another meeting.
Yes, I will send him an email. And specifically, do we have I know there's questions related to the drainage in the basins. Is there a specific question I can refer to him? So if I can only get the answer by email, he can zip it to me.
I think it would be that the leaching galley plan calls for a stone bed, but will the leaching galleys themselves be surrounded by stone to further influence, recharge? That's what
Okay.
I'd like to see. I mean,
yeah, and
Is
also
that something that could, sorry, go ahead, Ray.
that should prevent sand or whatever getting into the
Right. Fines from
Yeah,
infiltrating.
it's gonna fill up the inside. Yeah, it has to be gravel.
Yeah.
So yeah, unless
In
it's
the
on
instance
another
that we
sheet.
don't get a response tonight, is that something that the planning board would feel comfortable putting on as a condition of approval?
that was going to be my next question.
That's fine.
I think it's fine.
That's fine. And I don't know if we need to increase the cost of the bond to cover that, just to, but I have some comments on the bond also, and Gil did an independent review, so we'll see if we picked up the same information. We may
Okay.
have totally different comments. I don't know. Yeah, because I see the leaching galleys in the bond estimate. It talks about bluestone gravel, but doesn't have a quantity. So you can't tell from the estimate either if the gravel was estimated around the outside of the leaching galleys.
Hey, Ray, a lot of times, you know what I see too? I see filter fabric wrapped around the units and then fine sand or sand wrapped around them. That might be more cost effective than gravel. It's something we should talk about.
Yeah, anything I think to let the water drain out and
Yeah.
nothing to come in.
Yeah, that
Good.
filter fabric surrounding the structures is really good too, to keep from any.
Yeah, and then clean fill, let it with clean sand fill.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't have to
That
be.
gravel stone could add up. That's a big area.
Well, we've got actually an item in the bond estimate under, well, we've got, it says drainage, it says leaching galleys underneath it, and then it says filter cloth.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that that's the intent.
Yeah, they're including it.
Yeah. So that's probably okay then. Before we get into the bond, were there any other, we had nothing else in terms of comments on this, did we, to resolve?
No, I think that we left last time with just that you were going to take a closer look at the drainage that had been submitted and that we needed the bond estimates. Those were the notes I had after the last meeting. I think the rest of the issues had been basically resolved.
Yeah, probably in the minutes. Was it the last meeting or the meeting before?
Yeah, we talked about
Oh,
it.
it was the last meeting, yeah. Yeah, that's what we said. Those are the two items. Okay, good. Good.
So if you want to, for right now, to move on, and I'll see if I get a response from the architect, and then we can return to this and potentially vote on it with conditions if we don't hear from him, or if you're.
Well, why don't we go through the bond too? Because I have a feeling his answer is going to be, I don't have gravel, I have filter fabric around it with clean fill on the outside. That should suffice. I would think that's why the fabric's there.
You can't tell by the estimate whether it's fabric around everything, if it's stone around everything, or it's just the 12-inch trench.
Right, or maybe that referral to another detail that we don't have is maybe that answers the question, but yeah, we don't know. Gil, you want to go through your comments on the bond? And
yeah, I mean, really, I had no problem with the bond.
Oh, okay. Because I had a few things.
Yeah, okay.
I'll pull up the bond.
It was just, some of the stuff was just a little sloppy, I think. I'm in the curbs section where it says apron at street, 224 square feet at $18 a foot. It should be $18 per square foot. That's the, that page. Can you go back to the first page, Lisa? Or just...
Sorry, I was lost where you were at.
Yeah.
Oh, up here.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah. It says $18 per square foot, per foot on the second line. That should be per square foot. Same comment on the next two items. The roadway, you'll see the roadway sidewalks and the site sidewalks are square footage, but they put per foot. Same thing with the dumpster pad, per foot. So those were minor comments, but if you go back up to the curbs, I was a little confused because the total estimated cost, $16,782, is correct. It adds the $12,750 and the $4,032, but it's trying to break that into site costs and non-site costs, or total costs, I guess, first. So you have the total cost, and then the site cost, I think, should be the $12,750, not, because what they did is they took $32 off the $16,000 to get the site costs. I think they meant to take $4,032 off, because the apron at the street, I assume, is the street cost as opposed to the site cost.
Yeah, which will be covered by the bond for DOT, right?
Right.
Is that what so they should be subtracting that full amount?
Okay. Yeah, so I think the number on the right at the top should be $12,750. So the site bond actually drops by $4,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think he'll be worried about that.
No. That's all I had on the first page.
I think Eric is available to join, so just hold on. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, we'll get him on.
Hello?
Hi.
Eric,
Hi, Eric.
Technology is failing me time and again.
Did you get a question? Was that emailed, the question?
I've been on watching the entire time. So
Okay.
you're asking about the fill around the catch basins and the leaching galleys.
Yes.
Yeah. So typically, I mean, if you look at the soil boring, it says pretty much there's gravelly sands around the entire site. So in this type of situation, we usually just put a fabric around the pool, and it's usually fine there, and then it's set on a 12-inch minimum stone base.
Okay. All right, that's good. I just had some comment on the bond. Did you? I don't know if you caught that or you were logging in.
No.
Okay. I'll just recap on.
Okay.
On page 1, if you have it in front of you.
Yes.
There's 4 places there where it says it gives you a price per foot. It should really be square foot, because there's a quantity of square feet and it's multiplied by 18. The first one is $18 per foot, where it says apronette street. It should be 18 per square foot, right?
Well, no, because an apron is it would be a linear foot. It should say linear foot.
Okay, then that's confusing because it says 224 square feet.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. So yeah, so
Okay.
224 square feet at $18 per square foot. Sorry.
Okay.
Right.
There's 4 places on the first page that just has to be fixed.
Okay.
But the more important question was, will you see the total estimated cost for the curb? There's $16,782. The site cost says $16,750. That's only a $32 difference. I think what you meant to do is take the street apron out of that $16,782 so that the site cost would be $12,750. Because I think you wanted this street apron in the total estimated cost, but you want to take it out of the site cost because it's the street apron. It's not on the site. Because there's only a $32 difference between the total estimated cost and the site cost on the curb item.
Okay. Yeah. That looks like a typo.
So if that's correct, then your site bond went down by $4,000.
Ray, who bonds the curb, the apron? Who bonds that? If it's not part of the site.
DPW here. Oh,
Well,
no, that's a
actually, no.
state road. So,
As
yeah.
DOT.
Right. So that should be reduced down by 4,000.
4,032, right? Yeah. Oh,
No,
that number gets reduced by 4. Yeah.
32. They took off the 32, but they forgot the 4,000.
Right. Okay. All right. And so that's where we left off. So now I was on the second page. I just had a question about on the second page. I guess it was Gil, you were okay with that asphalt cost? $410 per square foot on this one?
Yeah.
Okay. How about the RCA price, $1.50 a square foot? I guess that's 7 inches of RCA at $1.50 a square foot. That seemed good.
There we are. Yeah, I'm going to say it's fine. I mean, we have the ability to access additional funds if we need it. If we ever get to that point.
Okay. And Eric, the total on the bottom is truly the total of the site costs, right? So that would come down by $4,000.
Correct.
So it'll be $197,903. We round up. I think we probably round these things up, don't we? In any event, that's the number.
Okay.
Right, so we need a motion for this, right? Yeah. Can I get a motion to approve the bond estimate as we just revised it?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the bond is good. And the only comment we had on the drainage was the filter fabric and just ascertaining that. So I think we're good. Do we have a resolution on this, or do we already do that?
I shared a resolution it was actually sent originally in before the February 11th meeting, the draft reso for this.
Yeah,
And then I did resend it with noting that we had the bond estimate submitted.
Okay.
And we do need a secret vote. But again, this was one where we reviewed the part 1, 2, and 3, and it's an unlisted action because it's just slightly over the size limit for type 2s. But we didn't identify any moderate or large impacts when we discussed this. So.
Okay. So does anybody want to see the resolution again? Or can we just go ahead and?
I can pull up the reso if you'd
Yeah, we
like.
can do that just to refresh our memories.
Let me see, where is it?
I'm just noticing on page 4, committee is spelled wrong.
Oh, thanks. I always have typos in there.
Well, I notice it only because my word is underlining it.
All right, let's see. I'm going to just share the screen here. Okay, so.
Okay, yeah.
Let me just.
Yes, we had some good ARC comments on this, just like we did on, well, we didn't get to it yet, but One North Country. Again, good comments, good quick comments from the ARC, which is very helpful.
If you need me to change the view, I can do that. I just trying to show you as much as possible.
Yeah, on the second page, a couple of lines above where it says vote on bond estimates, is village gardener the correct term for that?
You are correct. I didn't know this. She's a master gardener, but she is actually the groundskeeper. So maybe the village groundskeeper and master gardener, or that's her title is groundskeeper.
Okay.
So maybe we'll do that.
And that's how we amended the February minutes to read also. Because that was a question that you put on the minutes, right, for February?
Yeah, I know.
And yeah, I double checked with Village Hall.
Okay. Sounds like a baseball term for keeping the field in shape before the game.
I personally prefer gardener, but her title technically is groundskeeper.
Simpler, anyway. Okay, we vote on secret. Could you? I'm done with page 2. If you want to move ahead.
Okay.
Okay, and these are just the conditions, which are pretty standard.
In this case, I think they're all standard conditions.
Do we have one in there for the DOT permit? Yes, number 4. Okay. Yeah, this looks familiar. Okay, any board members have any questions or comments on this?
The only thing that Word is pointing out is, or you never mind, just got fixed. Never mind.
Yeah, I saw that one this time.
I can't be a smarty pants.
Boy, Lisa, they're a tough crowd.
They are. They're there.
Okay, so we need to do the secret.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna do finding of no significant impact. Is that correct?
That is what we identified in the parts two.
All right. Can I get a motion confirming the finding of no significant impact in accordance with SECRA?
I'll make,
motion.
Second? Gil had his hand up, so we'll go with Gil for a
There you
second.
go.
Okay, all in favor on that one? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And can we get a motion to approve the resolution with the amendments that we just made tonight?
All motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who
Okay,
seconded?
Tom,
Tom, okay. Thank
okay,
you.
very good. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
I think we're all set.
Okay, have a good night.
Great, you too.
Night.
Bye now.
Okay, and now we go back to 1 North Country Road, which is the last item on tonight's agenda. So I'm sure you have, besides Eric, you probably have other people in the waiting room, both Erics, I guess. on this one.
Yes, I have a lot of people in the waiting room, so I will start moving people in. Eric Russo is joining us. Rob Gito is joining us. I believe this is Eric Nicosia. Let's see. Rob, would you like me just to bring in the whole team?
It's really, it's going to be Eric, and Pat. Those are probably the three main people that you
Okay.
need in.
All right,
Great. Thank you so much.
no problem. So let's see.
Hi, Eric.
Okay, everybody seems to be in. Okay, hello, everyone. Jen, whenever you're ready, we'll, I guess, start. You want to start with your memo? That was today, right? Today's been kind of a blur, so.
That was.
And I didn't get any emails after, I think it was 4:45 today, so.
Oh, all right. I'll have to do better next time.
No, I was expecting one at 5:55, but I didn't get one. Do you want to start? Have you forwarded? I forget if you forwarded that to you did forward it to the applicant also, right?
Yep.
So they did a speed read.
I did. I hope so.
Yeah, I guess why don't we just go through that? That's kind of summarized,
Well-
I think, all the concerns today.
Can I just touch on a couple of points before we go to that?
Sure, if you're brief.
It's with great pleasure that I get to be participating with you this evening. And as you know, I am the applicant's attorney on this matter, and it is Port Development LLC, 1 Country LLC, or 1 North Country Road, as Jen refers to it on the agenda. You are aware, all of you, that this started back in August 4th at the pre-submission report, moved on to January 5th, February 11th, and we have arrived here tonight. The project itself has gone from 5 stories to 3 stories. We've gone from 46 units to 40 to 36 units. And although I didn't participate in the February 11th meeting, I observed what was going on and listened to the comments. And your board, in listening to everything that was being presented, decided that you were ready to go one more meeting to review and requested formal drawings from the applicant, and they've been provided. And I believe you received them last week because we provided them to Jen, and I know she was working diligently to circulate them to all of the board members. Once I was asked to assist and work with the presentation, I also asked Jen, and as I discussed with the chairman, that I wanted to try and move this along for this evening so that we would not continue to have multiple meetings after tonight, and that in the hopes that we could get to a public hearing on April the 8th, so that we can continue to move forward with the application and all the issues. The applicant and Pat Lenahan, as well as Eric Nicosia, have worked diligently to bring you up to speed. And they've addressed, and it's been established by Jen and the review, that everything is zoning compliant. There's one parking space over on the particular application. And Eric Nicosia has been working on and is ready to submit a revised LEAF and drainage and grading plans when we're moving forward with the public hearing. My big question this evening, before we get to Jen's comments, what I would like to hear, what I know the architect and the applicant would like to hear, is your reaction to the drawings that were put before you. What we had also asked for so that we could move forward tonight was input from the Portchip Village Fire Department. So last week, a week ago, Rob Gito met with your Portchip Village Chief Fire Marshal, which was Todd Stumpf, and got input from them, which Jen has, and we'll go through that and share that this evening. But there was nothing of any consequence, and all of his questions were answered. In addition, I requested, you agreed, and we arranged to get additional plans to get before the Architectural Review Committee and try and get their input and some thoughts as to what they viewed as of our building elevations. But they are an advisory capacity. They're not the final end all and be all of what is to be done. Those comments we received late this afternoon, and they have been circulated to you. But I know the applicant is curious tonight, before we get to Jen's comments, because I have some points to go back as to each of those, that we'd like to know what your thoughts were about the elevations. And I know Lisa has them that she can share on the screen for the public if they're participating.
Mhm.
What I also took the liberty of doing is providing to you and giving them to Lisa Rickmer so they could be on the screen. When we met with the Architectural Review Committee, I provided them with 17 photos. I took the time to come back down to the village in a beautiful afternoon on Tuesday and take 17 photos of various projects that the applicant has developed here in the village. And based on his ownership and management of over 300,000 square feet of real estate here in the village and development over the last 20 years, you have 17 photos. Then I started from the top of the hills, in the Hills project, and gave you 2 photos of the hills. I gave you 1 photo of Plaza 414, 2 photos of Barnum House, 8 photos of the Brockport project that is presently under construction. All of those projects were projects that you reviewed, you dealt with in terms of architectural style and integrity of construction. And everybody has been given many kudos, including the applicant, for the design that you're seeing he has done over the years. The Brookport project, which is presently under construction, is even getting many comments and accolades for the design and the extent to which the fenestration and the materials used are beyond what anybody anticipated and probably would be seen in Garden City or in Westchester County. So everybody, from what we're hearing, is happy with that development. And then I decided to go and take a look at other projects around the village, which have caused some people to pause, make comments, look back at and revisit. One being the shipyard, and there are 2 photos of that and 2 photos of Overbay, so that you could see the difference in the design style and technique by our architect and our applicant versus other projects that are there. Looking at mass, looking at height, looking at the number of floors, all of which over the years have come before the Architectural Review Committee and the Planning Board. I think when you evaluate that, and then we continue with the discussion about this project, I think you'll find a significant difference in the style, the manner, and the way that the projects that the applicant put forward has been approached and sought development here in the village. He's even used design landscape specialists, which in this particular case, as Jen is familiar, is Sandra Wadakor, who is from Oakvale Landscape Design in Shoreham, who not only has designed his projects, but he has utilized and helped with various landscaping and flower beds, et cetera, throughout the village of Port Jefferson on properties that are not his, but to beautify the community. That
Yeah,
being
Eric,
said,
I don't mean to interrupt, but I am. I think it's kind of, I think we all are very familiar with the geo developments in the village, and I think we have a very high opinion of the type of materials used and the view, the aesthetics of the facilities, and just the fact that they're good projects. So it's kind of redundant. I mean, we already kind of know that. So
well, it's redundant, but it's something that I want to make sure of, that we all remain constant and to pay attention to. Because when you look at what I saw this afternoon, the remarks from the Architectural Review Committee, I was taken aback because I was there at the committee meeting in person, live, COVID self-distancing, 6.5 feet. I've had 2 shots, Mr. Cheetos had 2 shots. Your trustee was there, representative, and 3 members of the committee. And the report that I got this afternoon, I was a little surprised at the comments that are being offered to you tonight. So that's why I want to start the meeting by asking you, since you requested the elevations and they're there before you, what your thoughts are. And I'm curious what the planning board members have looked at and what they thought.
yeah, I think it's one of the items on our list, and it's one of the items in the report. So I think going through in the report, if we go through one by one, we're not going to miss anything. Lisa will be able to put the elevations up, which I think are important because there are going to be some comments on that.
Well, the elevations aren't specifically directly addressed in terms of the comments. It just sort of globalizes it. And that's why I'm curious to see what your reactions are.
Yeah, well, yeah, I am too.
Thank you. I have nothing further at that point. I'll address Jennifer's comments from there.
Okay, good. Okay, Jen, if you want to go through your memo, maybe we'll put your memo up first, and Lisa, if you could be ready with the elevations too at some point, we'll switch on.
Yeah, I have to actually locate the elevations. Let me pull
okay.
Jen's memo up. And okay.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Let's do that.
Yeah, why don't we go in order? Otherwise, we're going to get sidetracked on this. Okay. Jen, you want to kind of summarize each comment and
yeah, I'd be happy to.
Go from that way.
The first comment we've talked about in the last 2 meetings, I think, that I think from a planning perspective, the isolation of the sort of not meager, but the retail component, I think, is in a great location, but in terms of its public access, I think it's a bit problematic. And we've talked about that in the last 2 meetings. And I continue to feel that it's, if we want to promote a walkable community that people can use, I think we have to make every effort to encourage the business component of the housing that's being, the mixed use component, the retail component on the ground level. And to that end, I think one needs a public rear entry. It would be sheltered because it's basically under the 2nd story. In terms of delivery, UPS, FedEx, all of these delivery services operate on, they are trying to make deliveries as quickly as possible. I can imagine that they will just sort of stop at the side of the road, hold up traffic, have people go around them, jump in, jump out on North Country Road because they've got to turn onto Thorn, come in, unload, walk their deliveries around to the front. Similarly with people who require wheelchair, if it's pouring rain, if it's snowing. Anyway, I think you get the gist. I don't want to belabor the point, but I do think it's important to make every effort to plan for successful commercial enterprises uptown.
Okay,
that will
okay.
be,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's it.
Okay. I guess,
Are we going to go through all of her comments, then I responding to those comments?
I think as we go, we'll talk about them. That's the purpose. You know, this one is phrased that the applicant might explore eliminating the lounge. So want to get a reaction to that.
Well, the applicant's reaction to that is that given the current climate in retail, which you are all very self-evident of by looking at downtown Lower Port and me just driving around downtown last Tuesday and the week prior, that prior to COVID, retail has been difficult to lease and to find tenants who are able to survive in the economic climate. And the question becomes, is it better to have an allocated vacant retail professional office space, or is it more appropriate to have rented apartments with amenities to assist the landlord to be able to rent the apartments? So the focus on the part of the Reliant Realty Group and Mr. Gito as the applicant has been one in which we needed to see that we were able to demonstrate that we have a product, and the product is apartments, because we know there's a need in the community, both with his projects, the shipyard, the overbay, that the public wants to rent apartments. And that's because they want to be out of owning homes, and there is a population that is looking for that. That being said, when you look further at this, the problem with what's being proposed is you're now suggesting that they go into a private residence under a parking area in order to get to a retail store. There's the square footage is, as stated in the report, on 1194. The applicant's position, as far as this development is concerned, is that it's best to leave the design the way it is. It's contrary to Ms. Ziegler's comments and recommendations, but the issue here is to stress the amenities, because the amenities is what is driving the people to come and rent the Reliant Realty Group properties. And the fact that they have lounges, and the fact that they have gyms, and the fact that they have entertainment areas, and in order to rent their apartments, it's things that the public is looking for when they're looking for the development. And they have evidence of that by looking at the hills and by looking at the other properties that they have here in the village. So we would prefer to leave it the way the design is, and that's the applicant.
Can I make a quick comment? Would that be all right?
Sure, Rob.
In regards to deliveries, Jen, we now have, we're adding our 4th Luxor package system. It's a locker system. If you guys aren't familiar for the apartments, we have 7 of them located throughout the island now. But long story short, in regards to FedEx, UPS, DHL, Amazon, their deliveries, those trucks will be entering the parking lot and using loading zone to make deliveries to the apartments. While they're there, they're obviously going to potentially have items for the retail space as well. So I do not foresee them parking on the street to make those deliveries. They will pull into the parking lot because they're going to probably have a boatload of packages to input into our Luxor package system, and then they'll just simply walk over to the retail tenant and deliver their package as well. If we have to, we can arrange for our retail tenant to go get their packages in the Luxor system as well. That wouldn't be a problem for us. It'd be easier for the package delivery people and to avoid the occurrence of any potential parking on the streets. I don't foresee that as an issue. And then in terms of retail access to the parking lot, I think we discussed this last time. We feel what we have proposed here is significantly better than the majority of the retail throughout the village in terms of walking from a parking space to the front door. Throughout the village, most of the retailers do not parking in front. And you could say Main Street, there's some parking, but it's very limited. So we're confident with what we have here will work for that retail component. Once again, it'd be a dry use retailer, so you're not going to have significant flow of individuals like a restaurant or a bar might have coming and going nonstop. So, and then, you know, furthermore, as Eric was saying, you know, having these amenities for the residential tenants is the utmost importance these days in terms of attracting attendance to a building rather than going the retail route. So that's all.
It's also an issue of security because you're letting public into a secure residential space. So Rob's
No, you
suggestion-
would have separate, you could separate them if you came in, if the lounge was, it basically became the retail. That could easily be blocked off.
Just, we don't have a plan in front of us, so could you just, Rob, maybe?
You have copies of it. I think you could bring it up, maybe. Lisa.
I can pull up the plan. Hold on.
Yeah, my only question was, there are two lounges, right? What's the difference and where's the location of the, in the building? Yeah, that's good.
So is that good? You can see.
Yep.
So what Jen is suggesting is that rather than this being a part of the residential space, it would make sense to have this be an entrance for the retail space and part of the retail space.
Okay. And what are the components? Where's lounge one? Oh, it's right on the other side. I see it.
They're both there.
Right.
And what
The blue is the lounge areas.
What's the difference between lounge one and lounge two? Different amenities in there?
Yes, they haven't been fully developed at this point, but yes, that's what the plan is. And Rob could be more.
Yeah, what we're doing at the Brookport, and we've been doing other places as well. One would act more as a formal lounge where people can sit, bring a laptop, do some of their work. A lot of people are working remotely, obviously now, and that trend's going to continue. So it gives people a nice private space outside of their apartment to do some work. And the other would be more of a fun game room type of lounge, pool table, poker table, some TVs, things of that nature. So we try to create a couple different types of spaces throughout the building. It's very important these days as an amenity to have those options for these tenants.
And Rob, the lockers you were talking about, is that the mail room?
Yeah, it'd be in the mail room. Yep, we would fit those in the mail room. I could send you guys, or if you feel more and free to come visit the Hills or Barnum. We have two at the Hills and we have one at Barnum up and running. So we could show you that anytime.
Okay.
And I hope you don't, I'm not trying to diminish providing amenities, but I think, well, certainly the Hills, you're allowed to have a standalone apartment complex. The same is true with the Shipyard and Overbay. On Main Street and East Main, a retail component is required on the ground level. And because this is a clean slate, I think you're sort of handicapping or I just think it's a missed opportunity. The hope is, and the comp plan speaks to, a successful, very, and I know it's hard right now, especially, but
it has been hard for very many years.
Right.
Yeah, retail is changed, as you all know, and COVID just made it a whole lot worse. We own quite a bit of retail, and especially up here, I mean, look at downtown alone is struggling. Look at the Gap. No one, and you have parking right behind them.
So I guess my question is, if this is the standard, this becomes the de facto approach for developing uptown, we will not have a successful
and
retail
when
area.
Does it have to be retail? It says retail office, but could it be more of a service like a float place or something that's focused
It could be
on
personal
health?
service.
There's a lot. I mean, people drive from here all the way to Patchogue just to go to one of these float places, and
I'm
we
sorry,
have a.
can you just explain what a float place is? I must have missed that. Are you talking about a food or
No,
a relaxation?
It's a relaxation place where you get in a tank of water, salt water, and you float, and it's like sensory deprivation. And I've
heard of that. I've seen it on commercials. Yes, I understand. However, that's also, becomes an issue as to sanitary and also.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that it has to be something that it would be float place, but what I'm saying is, fine, if you're making an argument that retail is dead, then don't put a typical retail space. But I do not believe that things that people still want to go and do are completely dead. Like, for example, the float place, people will drive from Port Jefferson to go all the way down to Patchogue.
Right now, I have to call you back.
So,
All
right. It says retail office, but I'm just making sure it could be something that services people in general.
We'd be open
which
to
is not.
any tenant, that's for sure, that
Yeah.
we're, allowed to put
And-
there.
Right, but
We know it's
how-
going to be a struggle just for the one space. So to add another space, we'd love to have retail. Retail, it's so much better, income wise compared to an apartment. We would love to do that, but that's just not the reality. We're in this business. We do it for a living. And it's just not where it is. And it's not in the near future. It's not 5, it's not 10 years away. Retail is a long way to come to reinvent itself.
And when when Jen is referencing the development plan that was being proffered at the time, there was no consideration at that time or thought that there would be a decline in retail and the way that the retail is handled today. And there was
That was
certainly
only
no
7 years
discussion.
ago.
Yeah.
Yes, but
And-
look, in 1 year, what COVID did,
Well,
devastated everything.
that's exceptional. And,
So-
and
Exactly.
I
Jen-
don't, sorry.
Jen, speaking of the comp plan, what was the specific verbiage for what has to be on the, like, was it retail shall be
For
on the
this-
first floor, or what? I can't remember the exact verbiage.
A permitted or conditional use. So retail, office, personal service, restaurant is more of a, would put the application is a conditional use, but also, conditionally permitted.
I mean,
For-
was there verbiage that said it had to be a certain size, or it had to be the entire first floor, or what?
No.
Okay.
A point of inquiry, has it been discussed? I know with other projects, we've talked about those flex spaces where it's a space, it's something that is either an apartment or a lounge that then could become retail in the future. Has that been
There are
discussed?
conditions. So if you have a ground level apartment are permitted as long as they are readily convertible without any disturbance to the surround, units above. And they're not really called flex spaces, but yes, there's yes, I think that.
Any other board members want to weigh in on this item before we move on?
Again, I guess the only, and I understand both sides. My preference would obviously be to see something that's accessible for folks with handicaps to get to the building in a more easier manner than having to walk along, sidewalk and then into the building. Deliveries I'm not too worried about. They're going to do whatever they got to do. One of my questions is, will the fire department require a second point of ingress and egress in case of emergency?
According to my understanding, the fire department has looked at this and their only focus was on Thorn Lane. And in terms of the comments that we heard,
Right, for access.
that they'd like to see Thorn Lane to be wider, to be 25 feet. And then there was
Bill?
just,
There's another entrance above near
By
the
the-
dumpsters.
Dumpster, yeah.
So there's a exit stair and corridor that comes out from that part of the building, and then the one off of the lounge.
I can jump in on that if that helps.
Sure.
Actually, the New York State Building Code is pretty liberal with, as far as, I think you're referring to number of exits out of the space itself. So actually in an office use, I could be up to 5,000 square foot with one exit, which is a little frightening, but and in this case, if it was retail, it's a large space. So actually only one exit is required as far as the building code, and it is typical to have these kind of small spaces. And it's really, relatively small space, not too many people functioning in and out of there.
the other comments that Mr. Stump laid forward were that there be low-lying vegetation planted and that the fire service connection be located on the southeast corner of the building. And again, the comment about the Thorn Lane to have a wider width, which Pat Lenahan has looked at, Eric has looked at, and we have to have another survey done, but we believe it's possible based on what we know of Thorn Lane that they could be able to accommodate the 25-foot width. I think that addressed all of their comments when they reviewed the plan with Rob Cheetah.
Okay.
which would address item number 4. So we're one ahead.
One ahead? Okay.
Yeah, you've got
You're
the
just
number one. One is
Oh, you
out.
mean one
4 is
item
out.
ahead. Okay.
You're just really efficient.
I'm trying to move you along. I don't want you to be here all night.
No, and we don't too, but we want to at least have a discussion on these items.
I do.
Get all perspectives. Okay, Jen, you want to continue with item 2?
Sure. Just a quick seeker overview. In the way that the comp plan in their draft and final EIS looked at development in Upper Port, and in the same way that no further seeker review was required for the Conifer project, and that all of the potential moderate to large impacts in seeker were considered in the environmental impact statement, mitigation measures proffered. The comp plan is still considered current. Everything except traffic impact and parking for this project is included basically in the environmental impact statement. And in my discussion with a DEC, someone at the DEC here, as when you can identify a site-specific impact that hasn't been included, and it may have been an oversight. The entire C2 was looked at, but in the traffic study that for the 500 unit build out uptown, and these 3 lots are the only C2 properties on the north side of North Country Road, Sheep Pasture Road, which is sort of the boundary for C2. So for that reason, I think we need to sort of zero in on a narrow lens to look at the potential impact of traffic here. The applicant provided a traffic study. I've gone through, well, not every page, but most pages.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of things, and it's just because I think the study was done before a number of revisions to the plans. So they're not meant as criticisms, only that there's just some updating that needs to be done. I think the Mather Hospital's proposed expansion, I think, will have a significant impact on the area in terms of increased traffic. I think at the time of this study, it was not yet a sort of solidified proposal. It's now an active site development plan. And I know that we had brought up in the past, Tom Vulpes, I think it was you, that started the discussion about the adequacy of the parkings. One, there's no visitor parking provided, and the reduced parking calculations now anticipate 1 car per 1 bedroom unit, and that's often not the case. So I realize that it's considered a TOD, a transit-oriented development up here, but I think practically very little walking is done in the area, and we are on the sort of the outside in terms of commuting to places like the city. It's long and short of it is, I think that some discussion about the adequacy of parking and potentially looking at the lot that we discussed to the east as a place for overflow parking, because I think Thorn Lane will become the parking area as it's the closest and absolutely the most convenient.
Can I jump in and speak to those?
I was just going to ask that we have our valued traffic consultant from VHB ready to respond.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry, good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody again. let's take it from the top. The project description, certainly we can revise the study to that end. Looking down further at Mather, I can change the language in the report as well and reissue it if the village requires it. The point I was trying to make in the study was that the construction and operation of any of the Mather improvements would certainly be very likely to occur in a year past the improvement and operation of this site, which is what I meant. I can augment that language to include some of the thoughts that are in the staff notes. That's not a problem. As far as the parking, and we discussed this at the last work session in some detail, and since then, given that discussion, I've got a little bit more information. But while the code talks about I think it's one space per
One bedroom.
One bedroom, and then what do we have for a 2-bedroom?
1.5.
1.5. Codes don't have a parking requirement in terms of the parking demand they expect to see. They're intended to provide more than adequate parking to be constructed for any reasonable demand that a particular use would see. Visitor space is not part of the code. Normally it's built into the code, and I have no reason to believe that it's not really intrinsically built into this one. However, I did look at some more information. As some of you folks on the board know, the Institute of Transportation Engineers publishes parking demand data for various uses, including multifamily. And the newest version of the book has data for, as luck would have it, multifamily housing within a half mile of a train station in a suburban area.
Thank you.
And as luck would have it again, and I can work this into the report as well to give everybody a more increased level of comfort, that tells us that the peak parking demand, which again, in a residential community is going to happen late in the evening, 10 or so at night when everybody is home. The peak parking demand for an apartment within a half mile of a train station is, if I lost my piece of paper, 0.61 parked vehicles per bedroom. So if we look at the number of bedrooms that we have and do the calculation, we wind up with about 20, if you came here in the middle of the night, you would expect to see about 25 vehicles parked. We can ask Rob Gito to speak a little bit more. I've spoken to him and his father about what they have seen at the Texaco property. And I think he mentioned last time that there are fewer vehicles parked there than there are apartments.
But they had a parking requirement that was quite high, that was higher. They were 1.5, so they were 50%. They were required to provide 50% more parking spaces.
Okay, so here the way we have in addition, we have the 4 spaces that the code allocates to the retail space, and if it's office, it's office. But in addition, at the peak demand of the site, which is going to happen at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that retail or office space is very likely to be unoccupied. So that puts us at a parking rate, when we look at the apartments, a parking provided rate at about 1.2. And that would be a rate that we might be comfortable with even if we weren't near the train station. So the effect of the TOD on the way the site is going to operate is really borne out in the ITE data, which is based on studies of actual sites within half mile of a train station.
Pat, do you know how many, if you do remember how many sites they looked at in that analysis? Because sometimes the sample size is small. If it's a reasonable sample size, that would be helpful to put that amend that as part of your study.
Yeah, I don't have it at my fingertips. I can include it. I've used it several times in other developments that have operated quite successfully afterwards. So I don't have any reservations about it myself, but I can include that. I'll look it up.
Okay. And if you have stuff from other Long Island developments near train stations, actual counts of parked vehicles, that would be helpful too. Also, you mentioned amending for the time frame of Mather, amending report, putting that in there. Even if phase one, let's say, gets implemented before you finish construction at this site, that additional traffic is Mather's responsibility to mitigate the impacts of. So
Right.
your traffic generation is very low, and in accordance with SECRA, that's really what you need to take care of.
Yeah.
So
Full disclosure, Ray, and you may know that we're engaged on that project as well. In speaking to the person in my office that's running that project, I think we will be done first, but there is also a very detailed traffic impact study being done for that application that will certainly cover that application.
Right.
And it would probably include us as another development to them.
Right. That's what it should do. Okay.
And I brought up Mather also. I know that there had been discussion about, possibly keeping the curb cut on North Country Road, but with the anticipated increase in traffic from Mather, that intersection backs up quite far already and has for some time. And I think it would just make using that intersection, that ingress, that curb cut even more difficult.
Jen, you're talking about the direct curb cut to North Country?
The one that exists now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, since we brought that up, because I understand that the fire department has come down with a preference to Thorn Lane.
They do.
So
yeah.
while that's my preference as well. I think it is the most appropriate place to put it. But I looked at as Eric said, I don't have a survey yet of Thorn, but the tax maps indicate a 33-foot right of way. And we have some 10 or 12 feet from the edge of pavement to our easterly property line.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems, unless we find something on the survey that's completely against every other piece of information, that we will have no problem widening that road to 25 feet as the fire department has requested.
Yeah. Does anybody recall what's on the east side of Thorn opposite this site? I mean, I know the residents on Thorn I've heard there's a petition that, they're not happy with access to Thorn, but I don't know. Personally,
Ray, are you asking what's on the east side of Thorn Lane at the corner? Father Frank has a school there from Montford House.
Okay, that goes all the way down to North Country?
It's the corner house on North Country and Thorn Lane on the east side.
Right.
And you have a very small parking lot in the back of the house.
Okay.
And then there's a professional office after that.
One further thing for parking, we would certainly be willing to, if the village would ordinance it, certainly prohibit parking along our whole frontage, because we do, as we've shown, we have adequate parking. Whether the community would want that extended a little bit further, so that they feel more protected against folks who might, they think might park in the street, we would certainly be willing to do that. But at some point, there are residents who seem to park, off the street a little bit because there is no curb, and that might interfere with them.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I would put no parking except with the resident sticker along Thorn. There are spaces along North Country. In the event we ever did need an overflow, that's where the people are going to park. Just put the signage. But let me just back up, and if I could say a couple quick things. We will not do a project. We've passed on so many projects because of parking. We're not confident that we're going to make the parking work. That being said, the rail property known as the Hills, I actually checked recently. I have 4 tenants that don't even have vehicles. They use trains, or they're using Uber or some other type of driving service that has come such a long way now that so many people aren't using cars. For example, we're involved with the property, I mentioned this before, in Amityville, 117 units, 132 parking spaces, a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments along a train station. The building, we are 95% full, no issues with parking, no issues at all. There's no commercial component. It works. Like I said, like everyone said, there's the shared parking. We deal with it in Barnum as well. We have our hair salon, the nail salon. We have a publishing office and CVS. They do use some of the residential parking just because we've allowed them to, and it works during the daytime. They leave by 5, 6 o'clock at night. That's when many of our residents are coming home. It works. It's a perfect shared parking situation, and we're confident that that same scenario would work here. Once again, we do meet the code for the parking, and we will not do a project unless we know it, unless we're confident, I should say, that it's going to work. So I do not see parking as an issue here.
Can I ask you a quick question, Rob? Are you planning to put charging stations?
Yep,
in
we're
the
doing
garage?
we're doing it at the Brookport. We're adding 2 to 3 of them there. We have one at our office right now. As we all know, that world's changing. I think GMC said, most
5
of their
years.
cars by 2035 or some date like that are going to be electric. So yeah, we have to plan for that future. So not only we're adding 2 to 3 stations at the Brookport, but we're also adding conduits to prepare ourselves for what the future might bring, so we don't have to rip up the parking surface later on. We would do the same thing here. We'd definitely have not as many as a Brookport because it's a few less units, but at least 2 charging stations and the ability to add more in the future. That's for sure.
Okay, getting back to access, I think, personally, when I look at it, I'd rather not have another access point or another curb cut on North Country just west of Thorn. Thorn is striped out. A lot of times there's congestion there. We know there's backups. People have to wave you through to get out, either to get out of Thorn or to turn into it. I don't know that we want to have that situation again, just a few feet to the west with another curb cut there. So that's just a personal, try to limit the number of access points on North Country to for safety. Really, it's a safety reason more than anything else.
Well, the revised plan that Eric has put forward, and Eric, you can confirm it, is just showing the only access on Thorn, correct?
Mm-hmm. And I understand the frustration to people on Thorn, thinking that it may be an issue having these apartments using their street that they've had forever as a point of access. But as we've all seen with the shipyard and some of our projects, that the amount of traffic generated from these apartment buildings are a lot less than what people anticipate when these things are getting built. It's tremendously a lot less. So I think they'll be.
Ray, due to the magic of the interwebs, I have found through the ITE that data is based on 10 studies.
Well, that's good. That's good.
They even managed to pull an equation out of it.
Okay, that's good. That means that you have enough data to do that.
Ray, since we're on that the topic of that study, and Ray, you had asked, for them to provide some information on some of their other properties that are within range of the train station. So you guys were talking about the Hills, the Texaco property, and that there's not as many cars as there are units. Is that in line with that number, that 0.6 number? Or could you give us an actual, okay, so if there's not as many cars as units, does it align with that study?
Okay, I can evaluate that.
Okay.
And then
we would have to, sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, going back to rail, I believe we have 19 spaces, something close to that in the Linden parking lot that we were able to build and continue maintaining with the village. If you were to drive past that parking lot at any point, you might see one car in that lot, and that's about it. So I know you said the Hills rail was built with an excess amount of parking that we're proposing here. There's at least 19 to 20 spaces that aren't even being touched there. We also have parking along Linden, empty.
Right. So
I invite you to go check that out.
Yeah, or if you could quantify it and see if it actually aligns with that study, because I think that the issue is since it's a little bit relaxed, the parking, there is no opportunity for visitors and where they're going to park. And I mean, people do once in a while have people over.
Sure.
And we do have a responsibility to the people on Thorn to make sure that even if it's 2 or 3 times a year, that it's not an impact.
No, and I agree with that. And the majority of time that's happening is when it's usually going to be the weekends, right? When people are having visitors. And at that time, a lot of our tenants Most of them are not really originally from the area, or they're traveling. So on the weekends, that's when you do see a lot of tenants are either traveling or maybe they're having guests. So it becomes sort of a shared system. Again, we're not going to assign spaces to specific tenants. So it really does work out better than you might imagine.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and if you had data from the hills, that's important because
That would be.
it's the same train service. So you have different
And I
rail
think-
stations with different train service. So that's a different.
Right.
That's a different.
And having it quantitatively, like being able to quantify to the people that live on Thorne that, hey, we literally have a business, we have a apartment complex, right down the road, and this is exactly what we see there. And it's been consistent throughout the years, blah, 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 so that at least they feel, one, their street's getting widened, but then they also realize that the reality isn't going to be as bad as, as what they might think.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, because I just wanted to add, I think that's for the public hearing, that
Yes.
sort of scenario
Sorry.
calculations will be important.
Oh, it'll be important.
And because this is, the only sort of secret issue that we are looking at, it's a narrow lens, but I think we want to be, thorough. That will be, we plan to do the secret review and the public hearing together. That seems to be the most efficient way to do things. And that kind of information will be very useful for the public.
Right, and in terms of Thorne, another point was, and I said it the last time, that when the other projects uptown get moving and get approved, ultimately there's provision to make Perry one way the opposite direction and install a traffic signal on Main Street to take some of that traffic off in North Country that wants to go south on Main or 25A. So that's an important element that we'll get to, as these projects come in. Can we move on to item 3 now on the?
So now, Eric, we can talk about the facades.
Oh, we probably want to look at the elevations at this point. Bring
I
those up.
thought we'd never get there. Thank you.
Yeah, you looked like you were uncomfortable while we were talking about traffic.
No, I wasn't uncomfortable. I was just looking at the parking, and I also know there's additional parking on North Country Road there heading from Main Street going east, which is on the south side.
It's
There-
parallel parking. There's not much, but yeah.
8 spaces.
Yes, but yeah. Yep.
8 is 8.
No, absolutely. Just
Okay, so these are the elevation. These are the new ones, correct?
These are the new elevations, and I would like Eric Nicosia, who has designed this with the input of the applicant, to give you his analysis and what he's proposing here and the finishes involved. And if you also, because the black is there, what you're able to discern, if you go, Lisa Rickmish can put it up, there is a back view of the Brookport, and it shows you the level of detail of the fenestrations on the building. And then Eric, go back again, keep going. Keep going. It's about 4 down, I believe. Keep going. That Eric will go through, that's the materials on the building, but keep going further. One more. One more. Sorry. Okay, that photo right there, if you can correct it so that they can see it. Yeah, you're getting there. There you go. And if you enlarge the top portion of that, you can see the level of detail that they're planning on trying to continue to carry through in the north. And I leave it now to Eric Nicosia.
Okay. And also, Lisa, if you can get ready to bring up that pedestrian view of the building that was submitted separately, that I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that this
Eric will
one.
lead it. Yes, exactly.
All right, so I have them both ready. So whichever one you want
Good.
to talk about.
Very good. Okay, we'll start with the basic elevation views, I think. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. And I'll try to be somewhat brief. Obviously, you can see the building in front of you, but we are proposing flat roof design to keep the general overall profile low for this 3-story structure. We have a brick base that encompasses the first floor with some accent pieces that the brick continues all the way to the top. What wraps around the building is a trim band of the brick, which is called a soldier course, which are the bricks standing up. And those soldier course also acts as lintels or the headers over the windows throughout that level. The first floor also has awnings along the south side. Some of the balconies act as the covered entryways to the retail space, and also the access to the underneath the garage. It features in the a carved sign with the gooseneck lighting over the commercial space and over to identify the apartment entrances. Obviously, primarily the people are entering through the parking area and in underneath into the garage, but there is pedestrian access from North Country Road. And there's also another access from the parking lot on the east side that serves as a secondary exit from the building. The upper floors of the 2 floors are broken up with ins and outs, and we feel tastefully done bump outs that help break up the building as to not be a monolithic one piece building. Essentially there are 3 materials on the building, being the brick, the siding, and then we have turret, 2 turrets on each the corner of North Country Road. And then as you go down Main Street, which has more of a solid color, we do have 2 different accent colors that help break it up and help differentiate the building to make it a little more interesting, which we feel was important. The windows are quite they're large. All the windows have transoms over the main window, either a 1-foot transom. And some of the accent areas have larger transoms, which are not only nice from the outside, but end up being very nice and popular from the inside. All those windows have large 3.5-inch trim around it. It has a 8-inch pediment or head over the top. Obviously we have balconies of different sizes around the building that have the doors associated with, also has the transoms. And space throughout the design, we have some bump ups that give some accent to the building. The tallest one being 54 inches, that is on that corner turret, and that turret has a balcony associated with it. And that's going to be on, again, North Country corner and on the north side going down Main Street. And also as part of that design, I've pulled the building back a little bit on the north side. And that turret design also, instead of previously it was a square part of the building, now it has angles and is more, adds to the setback of that corner, which does help break it up a bit. The air conditioning, heating and air conditioning for the building, each unit at this point is planned to have its own separate system. We would have interior a furnace or air handler in the apartment, and on the roof is a small 2-foot or 30-inch condenser unit. And now those would be hidden behind those bump outs. So there would be no mechanical features. The only thing that sticks up on the roof, which is a necessity for code, is an access stair to the roof. And then the elevator has an over travel, which we need to provide. I think, some of the features in there, we have a couple of the oval windows where that break up the design on the north side of the facade. That also happens in the staircase. We provided some of the 3D views that go along with these elevations. and we very much like the black presentation of the trim. Like, it's on the printed copies, it's a little harder to present the detail as to the line work because it's black.
Right.
But we would be utilizing similar detailing to what is done, as Mr. Russo had pointed out, on the Brockport design, where it's an elaborate cornice at the top, and that we, will be able to can provide some more detail with that, as some of the other comments with the ARC had requested, which we could follow up on. And I guess if we talk about that photo simulated view of proposed and after, that shows that situation there. So there we are coming up from downtown, heading south on Main Street. On the left is one of the way back buildings. And this is from the Google Street View when there were trees leafed out available on it. And a couple of the trees are on our property. One of them you can see is dead there, and that would come down. There's a couple of others that would come down, and it's pretty difficult to do this photo simulation and make it exact, but I think it's a pretty reasonable representation of what would be happening there. So there is significant vegetation that's there on the other property. We're also adding trees, compact vertical growing trees that add to that, in addition to the trees that we'll be putting along Main Street, pending the termination of the DLT, exactly where they are located. So we feel that it is helping to break it up a bit. And again, that turret on the end is a focal point, but it does help lessen some of the impact of it. And there'll be some good views up there. We're pleased and excited about the design, and any questions you might have, I can address.
Right. Now, I guess maybe now's the time just to maybe summarize the ARC comments. I think one of them was to have maybe a lighter color as the predominant color. I mean, these are comments that, are subject to discussion. I think that personally, I think the amount of detail on the building looks really nice. They also asked for samples, but again, that's just to refine the comments.
Well, they're concerned about the samples, Ray. When we were at the meeting, two of the members, or one of the members, misunderstood and thought that there was an application that had already been filed with the building department, and I called Ms. Suarez to kind of find out if they had the plan and if they had samples. And what we tried to explain to them, and we clarified, was that the whole purpose of the meeting when we were with them last Tuesday was to show them the design elements of what we were proposing, and that would happen later, after the planning board determines and finalizes the project and grants an approval. When we're going in, at that point, they would have their samples and the more detailed drawings. But in terms of the coloration, we took this idea because Mr. Gito and Eric were trying to come up with something that they thought would be sort of different, and then would also be sort of something similar to the old tax office downtown, because the tax office downtown is black with brick and windows, and they thought that this might be another way of tying that in to up here as well, because as you cross over from the railroad tracks, everybody sort of thinks this is the beginning of Port Jefferson, and that's where the focal point would be. And they wanted to design a building that was great in detail, with railings, with windows, etc. And when the AR committee did their review, they had questions about the facade. In terms of the stepping that Eric and Mr. Gito had put together, they talked about white. White is less expensive for the applicant because the cost of making it black is something that, what they're saying and what they have to go through to create this look. So, the focus of this is to come up with a design that people find and like to look at. And that's what the thought is here.
Okay. I don't have the ARC in front of me. Was there anything else that was important? I noticed there were 3 or 4 items in there.
They focused on the coloration, the dark color. They
Right.
focused on talking of the stepping. They focused also on the height, and then they wanted to talk about doing a little bit differently in terms of things that you already considered as a board and ruled out, and consider the possibility of a variance for the site in terms of the uses and bringing more a use variance coming into play. And that's not something the applicant wants to do, and it's something you as a board already ruled out. And as we focused on it, we're looking at this and we're saying, and once again, we have their input, but again, it's an advisory committee. This board gets to make the decision and pass it along.
Yeah, but I think we've commended them for responding, with some good comments and very quickly too.
I don't disagree.
And Ray, did you want me to pull up their comments to look at?
Yeah, quickly, just take a fast look at them. It's 3 or 4 pages and 3 or 4 items, I think.
And their final report is still to come. Keep in mind.
Say that again, Gil.
Their final document is still to come. This
Okay.
was just a cursory review.
These were initial comments.
And while Lisa's doing that, again, it's my own personal opinion, but I think the black I think it looks beautiful. But the only question I have is it expensive because the black, I've noticed some things that are black, they tend to fade over time. So is it something that won't fade? Is that what makes the black so expensive?
Eric can respond to that.
What makes it difficult is that everything is white. Everything in the world comes as white, so it's a little more difficult to source some of those materials, and
because that would be
maintenance on the building. So
okay.
Anything that we're going to have to paint to do it requires the upkeep, which the developer is certainly is in the habit of doing. If you look at the other projects that have been there for a while, they still look pretty new. So yeah, it's difficult to order things. It's difficult to coordinate it all, and that's the primary reason for that comment.
But Mr. Gito explained at the ARC committee that he was committed to maintain it and make sure that it was aesthetically pleasing and maintain the look that he had when he created it. And as Eric's pointing out, and as Rob can attest to, they've done major renovations at Barnum. They're doing major renovations. They're even changing things in the hills at this point as they're moving along to try and keep up with tenant demands and requests for various items and make their apartments attractive. So I wouldn't be concerned about it being black and fading, because the integrity of the applicant in trying to maintain his properties is constant, as I stated earlier at the beginning of the meeting.
Right.
Yes, and I agree.
Yeah, we know that. The next page, it talks about the stepping of the facade. I see. We covered this stuff on the first page already. And the height of the building. Okay. All right. There was some.
And again, I want to repeat that both Mr. Gito and myself greatly appreciated the efforts by Eric to get additional plans over, and Jen and Cynthia Suarez to be able to set up this meeting and have the attendance of the trustee and the 3 committee members. It was a pleasure to be able to meet with them even in a COVID environment. And we appreciated the time they spent greatly and getting the report to you for this evening. They did a yeoman's job.
Can I make one statement, Ray? Would that be all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Just, I want to commend Eric. You did a great job on these elevations. I think I was very pleased with the way they come out. I think the level of detail, and I like the design. I like the black and the gray. And the only concern I have is that northwest turret that faces the north side. That's a lot of black. I can see some, if you go to the right, or wherever. Sorry. Yeah, oh, you can't see my arrow. But on the north elevation there on the right-hand side, that those 3 floors of black detail, and it may just be the CAD ability of CAD to show that level of detail, but it just seems like it's going to be, it might be something to consider to break that up with, like you did on the southwest corner with, the lower third being in brick. But again, I don't have anything but good things to say about this. It's just that's a lot of
Black on one corner.
Yeah.
Also, Mr. Anderson, in response to your request, if you go to the shots of the Brookport, you'll see the brick that's going on the building.
Mhm.
And because there was a concern by the ARC that, is it really brick? And he reaffirmed that it was. If you go back,
Yeah, I'm great with the brick and everything else. It's just,
and it could possibly, I mean, that's a suggestion, and it can be discussed. And as the applicant has pointed out, it can be looked at. And
Yeah, we'll definitely take, we appreciate everyone's suggestions, especially in that north elevation there. And we'll take a closer look and maybe come up with some other ideas and see what we can do there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we should work our way back, Jen, to the memo. I think we covered, well, we just talked about item 3. We covered the fire department's comments.
Jen, you're muted.
Maybe move to item 5.
1 second. I think Jen is muted and she's fixing that.
Okay.
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. I was just wondering, because I think the south corner of Main, that sort of turret, as we're calling them, works especially well because it has wraparound balconies and it lightens the sort of massiveness of the turret. And I realize it would decrease the square footage of the units on the north corner, but it might go a long way to making all of that black seem less massive. If rather than the terraces or the balconies, sort of right now, I think they're currently off to the side to the east. If there was sort of a wraparound treatment like you did on the Main Street, North Country Road side, it might, it also steps it back a bit.
I'm sorry, well, maybe I'm not understanding your comment, but the floor plans are the floor plans that they want to maintain, because they've gone from 46 units to 30 to 36, and they can't lose any other square footage or apartments, because they know that the number of apartments that they're seeking here at the 36 unit is what makes the project work. So I think it would become, as Rob pointed out and Eric pointed out, that they look at the materials so that it addresses Gil's comment, and they want to keep the balconies that they're having as part of the amenities in some of the apartments. But we certainly can look at the materials.
Yeah, Jen, like I understand what you're saying, Jen. We'll take a closer look at that north corner and see what we could do with it.
Okay.
Okay. Jen, you want to continue with item 5? I think those were suggested sustainability features.
Yes. Well, actually, yeah, the app, just because we can start with the first one. You've got a large, unobstructed, for the most part, with the exception of the mechanical equipment, on the roof, big southern exposure, a great opportunity for a photovoltaic system. If not now, it could be pre-wired for the future. You have great, and they're, even with a 3 or 4 story building on the opposite side of the street in the future, you'd still, it might be an important amenity and an economical one at some point. I always throw in the use of durable siding material. It is true, though, that I think the maintenance on your buildings is incredible. That is, cement board is pretty indestructible, but in lieu of solar on the roof, a green roof to reduce energy costs was another item. Solar shading on some of the upper story windows, and I'll echo the board's satisfaction. Well, I think I like the aesthetic of the building. I like what you've done with the elevations. I like how it's sensitively broken up. And I think that given that long southern exposure, at least on some of the upper windows, there are solar shading devices, aluminum ones that I think would enhance maybe I look at it as more of an industrial aesthetic, and I think, which is, I think is entirely appropriate for Uptown. Those might be something to look at. And the next item, I think you have a great opportunity to capture some of the runoff from the parking lot. If a rain garden was designed, if the landscaping buffer was incorporated a rain garden design. And I think it would still be beautiful as well. Thirdly, this is definitely a wish list item, but I always have to throw it in there. Capturing runoff from the roof as gray water. You've got a large crawl space where cisterns could be stored, and that water used for irrigating the very nice plantings that you have proposed for the project. Okay, that's it for sustainability. I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
No comments. Good.
I can give you the applicant's.
They're going to do them all.
I can give you the applicant's response because I specifically have a full understanding of his position. As far as the issue as it relates to the cement board, one of the concerns is cement board is much more heavier material structurally, and as such requires additional cost to try and seek to put cement board on this particular project or any project. It also would require painting every 5 years. The use of vinyl is something that the Reliant Group and Mr. Gito has come to use and finds to be cost effective, and also has the integrity of the design and the look that they're trying to maintain in all of their buildings. As far as the costs, this was something that I have been listening to not only from him, but from others as well, that just, for example, in the Brookport, the lumber supply that they were purchasing has gone up from when it was purchased to now 30%, and it has gone yet up again by inquiring on other projects, another 60%. They're also finding that steel that was purchased is now and paid for and locked in has gone up 100%. And they're looking at the PVC fencing that they're proposing for Brookport downtown, where they had a cost of $35,000 to purchase the fencing, is now, when they're ready to order it, at $60,000. They are talking to elected officials locally, statewide, and nationally through their various several associations that they work with to be able to try and get support, because if these price increases continue in this fashion, building will be stopped. And so they are trying to design a building that will be cost effective and that will be able to turn around and become the project that you're going to see here in 2 years. And I understand Jen's bullet points there that she is seeking, but the applicant had pointed out that they provide shades in all of their apartments for all of their tenants, wherever they are. And looking at the other items there, they were not something that he felt that were feasible to do or would be cost effective to develop and construct this particular building. So I understand her points. I think they are, in a green perspective, perfect, but in this particular project, given the tight margins, they're not going to be able to go forward with them.
Well, we understand your response, and you're getting a little echo there. We understand your response, and we can review this a little bit more, or talk about maybe implementing 1 or 2 items, or rain gardens don't seem to be a particularly heavy cost item, but
I recognize your concern, but I'd also like you to point me in the direction of the code section that says that's a requirement.
well, things that we ask for as amenities, I don't think everything's in the code. So, and this is also relatively new, rain gardens. So our code
it's
needs to
something,
catch
Jen,
up.
we always look at, like, the electric car charging stations. We're always revisiting, solar options to see if they become more economical with rebates and upgrading, older properties we have to LED lighting. So we are always looking to see what we can do to become more environmentally friendly and also save costs for ourselves with the operation of these buildings. So maybe, like you said, it's not stuff that we can implement right away with the initial construction of the building, but definitely stuff that we're always looking at. I'm always myself looking for ways that we can add green to our buildings. So, like I said, we may not be able to do it right away, but we are definitely always open to it and looking into it for the future.
All right. Well, we can, if you formalize a brief response to all of those, that would be good, just so we have it. I see you got that suggestion for pedestrian interest, Jen, number 6 there.
Yeah. I think you've got a great opportunity. Lisa, if we could go to what elevation is that? The Main Street West elevation. There. Yep. So there are, in the crawl space, you're showing, as just more detail in the sort of base brick part of the facade. In those little niches, I guess that's what they are articulated as. It could be a great space for an exhibition space and something that people walking by would enjoy. It could be rented out as, space for new shops or pop-up stores to showcase what's coming, artwork, people's video. I mean, I just think it's a nice opportunity and one that wouldn't be terribly cost prohibitive. I think might just require some lighting, some security, which it looks like you're showing. Are those grates on there, or I don't know exactly what I'm looking at.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at the niches at the street level, the 3 niches that are in front of the crawl space.
If my memory serves, they are grates, I believe, design grates, but
Yeah.
Eric could probably further
Eric's still
elaborate.
there?
A lattice type.
Right.
Right. So how about making them an exhibition space that pedestrians would walk by and check out?
Again, in looking at your comments to items number 6 and 7 that I've had discussions with the applicant, if the Village Planning Board and the New York State DOT come back and make suggestions as they relate to landscaping and sidewalk amenities and that particular request, we can look at and consider what the recommendations are. You have to tell us what you're specifically looking for. And I just want to take a step back regarding the question about the green issues and what the applicant has found in particular. And I'm working on this project and I neglected to mention it earlier. We have another shopping center in Medford that we're working on with Starbucks. And Starbucks has asked if we could do, or we could accommodate, or could there be green amenities placed in the area for the particular location that they're there. In that particular case, the applicant has said, I am not able to accommodate that, but if you wanted to undertake it and you can find that corporately, both in the area or nationwide, that your headquarters are willing to do it, we'll consider it. So what we're seeing here is that people, although they're good suggestions, they're not following through when they see that the cost of doing it is not something that they're able to carry through with or get authorization for. Rob is correct in pointing out to you that as he's doing in the other locations. They're trying to be current with modern advances as it relates to cars, et cetera, and electric chargers and that kind of thing. So it can be considered, but I'm not certain that you may be seeing it today while we're building it. It might be something that happens as it goes along in the future. And as far as items 6 and 7, again, I point to the fact that our Sandra Wadaker, who is our landscape architect for the project, and she has designed what's being proposed from Oakvale Landscape Design in Shoreham. And she's also designed, as I said earlier in the presentation, a lot of the landscape projects that are being benefited by the village as a result of the applicant. We're willing to work with whatever the New York State DOT, and Pat Lenahan can come on and tell you exactly what that issue is as it relates to Route 112 or the Main Street area. And if New York State DOT approves it and the planning board finds that it's something that would be a necessity and we can manage to work it in, the applicant's willing to consider 6 and 7 as cited in there.
Terrific.
Have you already spoken with DOT? I don't recall.
Pat Lenahan, he can come up and he can tell you because his design professional has had some interface with Malik over at New York State DOT.
Right.
Good evening again. Yeah, I guess it was last week we started to take a closer look at the area, call it the roadside area between the building face and the curb on Main Street, because I guess it's 150 some odd feet long, and there's at least 5 feet between the building face and the right-of-way line. So there's an opportunity there to do quite a bit in terms of how the landscape presents. But of course, we have to do it in a way that's appropriate, and we have to deal with the DOT as far as the approval process. So I took a look at it. I had my lead designer take a look at it. We came up with the same criteria, and I said, you know what, do me a favor and call DOT, and let's just be sure of where we are with them, and confirm our thoughts are in accordance with what they would require. And so what's shown on the plan currently is close to where the DOT would like to be. The DOT is going to require a 5-foot sidewalk, not a 4-foot sidewalk.
Right. Yeah.
In certain specific instances, they'll go to 4 feet because 4 feet is the ADA minimum. However, there has to be a very good reason why, and there isn't one presented in this condition. So we'll have a minimum 5-foot sidewalk. For purposes to ensure there's no encroachment between properties, they also want the rear edge of that sidewalk 6 inches from the property line. So that puts our sidewalk 1.5 feet closer to Main Street. And from there, we would have a just over 2 feet mow strip from the face of the curb to the front face of the sidewalk. As far as the trees, their clear indication was that they would like them behind the sidewalk on private property. That'll do a couple of things. The traveled way on Main Street, because of the way you approach North Country and you come through the intersection, vehicles are traveling very close to the curb. So any tree canopy that could be put in that mow strip would be subject to being hit by larger vehicles. If you look at Google Earth, you'll see a vehicle that just came northbound through the intersection, and it's very close to the curb. The 2-foot mow strip I like personally because I want to get the people on that sidewalk away from that curb, as the cars are that close to it, and the tree could certainly also grow into a clear zone violation. Next to the curb, a safety issue. While lampposts are made to be breakaway, if they're struck by a vehicle, if a tree gets bigger, over 4 inches in caliber, it's considered a fixed object hazard. Another thing that was considered was, if we would have put in a tree pit, where would it be? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The tree pits we used down the hill at 440 that the DOT uses a 4-foot square, and they have about a 1-foot hole in the middle, And that's to keep the roots away from the sidewalk. And obviously there are places where there are no tree pits. And if you look close to the tree, the sidewalk is lifting. So we want to avoid that. But even if we were to put a tree pit in, the canopy would still be awfully close to the traveled way, and the tree itself and the hole in the tree pit would intrude on that 5-foot clear width that the DOT is looking for. So although, you know, we'll continue to dialogue with DOT, and as Eric mentioned, you know, the solution is going to fall out to be the best solution that falls out of that process. But I think it's going to be similar to what we have here besides those changes. And I think the DOT is going to certainly want those trees behind the property line.
But Eric, Pat, also if you could, we looked at, because Jennifer was questioning it, when we talked about downtown and the project that is there and the trees that were placed.
Yeah.
The sidewalk is larger. There's a parking lane,
Yes.
as you pointed out, and as we shared with Jen. And the other part is you also noted that in front of this project, the lane sort of is to the left is a little bit wider, which was a concern.
And you have
earlier today.
And you have vehicles turning off, for instance, eastbound North Country Road. So a wider vehicle wants that wider receiving lane. And yeah, downtown further by the other project, the sidewalk is 10 or 12 feet wide, and the trees closer to the sidewalk side of that section aren't a problem because it's isolated from the through traffic by a parking lane, which we don't have here.
Yeah, and there is this slight across the intersection. If you're traveling north across the intersection, there is a slight alignment issue where the road on the north side is a little bit to the left of where you have to move to the left when you go through the through lane. So there's a lot of things happening there.
But again, the applicant's position is if the New York State DOT says it's acceptable and the planning board wants a certain element of different things in this location as it relates to items 6 and 7, then he's prepared to go along with the DOC's recommendation or the suggestion of the planning board.
There is a further note in the staff report about some sort of creation of a barrier in the notes to isolate the pedestrians from vehicles, I guess is the intention of that.
No, I mean, that would be what that landscaping strip was. It's a terrifying sidewalk. So what you're calling the mow lane, maybe it's something that can have, you know, managed low growing shrubs, but it's a really unpleasant sidewalk to walk on at the moment.
Well, we're gonna, you know, the intent is to make sure nobody parks at the end, you know, nobody walks down the road near the curb, which happens currently because the sidewalk goes all the way to the curb.
Well, and the sidewalk is quite narrow right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, that's all, you know, all those issues we could, you know, talk about the DOT about what we can and cannot put in that so-called mow strip. It's also a snow storage strip, effectively. So you got to be a little careful of what you put there doesn't get damaged, and the DOT only allows certain species to go in the right of way, and some things require irrigation and some things don't, and you know they don't want private irrigation generally on public property. Okay, I'm glad.
No, those are all fair points. I'm just worried about. My concern is pedestrian comfort and safety, and right now it's not a safe or comfortable place for pedestrians.
But we don't want to perpetuate that either, and we want to maintain it as a safe place.
Yeah,
well, it's not a safe place right now. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh,
well, we're gonna pull those pedestrians away from the curb edge. That's certainly something that we want to do. I don't know why it was constructed that way. You know, a lot of things were constructed back in the day when we didn't give as much thought to the things we do now.
Right. We didn't drive as fast, or we didn't have as large cars either.
Well, the horses were easier to, maybe a little bit easier to control.
I was gonna bring up that there were horse and buggies, but we don't have to go there. So that brings us to number 8 on the comments from the village planning and building staff that talks about an April public hearing. I know that our people could certainly put together and address any of the concerns that you've raised tonight. And we would like to request that we're able to go forward with a public hearing on April the 8th.
Well, I would like to hear before I say what my opinion is from the board. based on what we've heard tonight, what's been submitted, the comments we've discussed, how do you feel about having the, scheduling the public hearing for April 8th?
I'm good with it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Gil's nodding, just gave a thumbs up.
Where's Gil? I didn't see him. He's
Here I am. All good.
very
I
good.
agree.
I like the thumbs up. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That leaves Mr. Tobias to lead in.
Yeah, and I have the same opinion, so.
And I think Mr. Voltis disappeared. Where did he go?
He may be out at the site checking it out. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
I don't know, but
That's wonderful news.
we've got a majority, so I think you can plan on having having the public hearing. I don't know if there's anything else scheduled for that day, but the public hearings will start at 6:30. So if there's no other hearings, you'll be on at 6:30 on April 8th.
Can I ask a question and put this out there for feasibility? This project is in my opinion, a pivotal project here within your village because it starts and marks the entrance to the village. And I love Zoom, but what I was thinking, and I've done this, I did it last July with a project in the village of Patchogue. We wound up going to the Patchogue Theater and we wound up having the planning board, the architectural review board, because that's how they do things there, with the village attorney up on the stage, and the applicant and his consultants were to one side and the public was to the other, and it was all cordoned off. Given this and given this project, I was just going to toss out there to you that possibly we can find a venue that we could do a live presentation, because maybe it might be better and best addressed. I love watching us all on camera, but I think it would be better that we were in person, and that maybe that would be something you could consider for the next board meeting, to have it in a public location. So I'm just tossing it out there. I know that might cause a bit of effort on the part of the village, but I also know, and Brian Egan was a part of that the last time around, maybe that's something you might want to consider. But if not, I'd be fine with not having it. So whatever works, let me know. I can confer with the applicant.
Assume it's a virtual meeting for now, because I don't know if the village is at that point where they're ready to have any meetings in person. Someday we'll be back in person, I think. I don't think we're going to stick with this format at a public hearing, but
all right. Well, then
may have some other.
It was just a suggestion, and I'm perfectly happy with keeping it as a virtual meeting. Okay.
I think part of the reasoning. Yeah, I think part of the reasoning that we've stuck with this format is that, particularly when there's a project of this much interest, like we know this one will be, there is always the concern that if we do not book a space that provides significant enough seating and social distancing, that the hearing would have to be bumped to another month for another public hearing.
That's okay.
So
I prefer to have April the 8th and stick with what we got.
I'm watching Rob's face as I'm
Rich likes to walk around a lot.
That all back, not a problem.
This is fun.
Again, I'm watching Rob's face as I'm saying these words, and I'm like, I think I got it.
With that. Thank you very much, but I just wanted to see how close to anything you were willing to do. But thank you.
Fair enough.
April the 8th it is.
All right.
So that'll be at 6:30.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There may be two hearings. I don't know what the position will be, but we start public hearings at 6:30 on.
That'll be great.
So if there's no other hearing, you'll be on at 6:30.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Good discussion.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
we
Good night.
Look forward to the public hearing.
Have a good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, board members, I think we're at the end of the meeting. I don't think we missed anything on the agenda. Unless somebody has something, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Luego.
Good night.